Let me show you something related to NIK Silver Efex Pro. First of all, you can run it as a standalone. This is sitting as a standalone, or you can run it coming in from Photoshop. I'm going to use it coming in from Photoshop because it gives me an advantage of using the various layers rather than just taking it into Silver Efex Pro. It's all right. I'm just going to demonstrate the aspects to you of why there's an advantage to doing it this way. First, let me show you this image. I think, Jerry Mitchell, is this yours? I think this was sent to me recently. And
That's mine, John. John Minnick.
Oh, John Minnick. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
He sent it to me, and he had converted it from a color image. And I said, wow, it really neat of what you did. Let's just bring out a little bit more of the emphasis. And the reason I'm saying that, going back to the aspect of contrast, you can add contrast in the sense of increasing the highlights. And one of the ways to do that is to use levels. And levels allows you to change the highlight, which is up here on the right-hand side. And I can move that in as long as I'm not moving into the histogram. I'm not blowing out any of the detail in the highlights. And you see that made that much more interesting. Let me show you the difference. I'll back this off a little bit. Turn this off. You see how flat that looks now? Now you see, and you really look into that. And all I did was adjust the levels. There's another way to do it that often you will use if the histogram is tight to the right, and I want to bring in a little bit of more contrast into the black and white from a color print, is you use what's called brightness and contrast. And I've found that the brightness slider here increases the whites without blowing out the detail. I can actually make it brighter than I could have with levels, and I didn't lose any of the detail in that highlight areas, and then just increase the contrast a little bit if I want. So I almost 90% of the time am using the brightness contrast adjustment on a black and white as a final step. And look at the difference now on this, how much more without losing any of the detail in the bright areas. Brightness contrast, that's the one you want to do. Yes.
John?
Yes.
On that image, and you've got the original colors, the original image, and then I enhanced it and then converted it to black and white.
Yes.
There was quite a difference between doing that versus converting it to black and white from the original as well.
Yes, yes, that's true. Yes, good comment.
Yeah, the contrast, though, I felt the wheel got washed out a little bit. I don't know how to fix that. You know, because on the slider, just changing the contrast, it felt like the wheel, I lost detail, like it was washed
Well,
out.
you really need to be careful with that, which is also why, and I was just dealing with a smaller pixel thing. So if you're using your raw file, not a JPEG, you'll have more pixels, and especially that feature, let me come up here, the brightness contrast will work really well, and you'll get it bright and not lose any of the detail in the highlight areas.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a shot of my favorite location in Scotland. That's Ilian Castle, and it's one of the locations I take the workshop. And we can go up above. There's a road that runs up through the mountain. And so I go up through there, make sure that I have a little space between the top of the castle and this area in the background. And this is a panorama. Now, you all have heard me 1,000 times saying we read left to right. So instead of me doing anything with it this way, this is the final enhanced color version. But I also then go here, flipped it the other way. And so here's how I did it. Take this image, come up to image, image rotate, and just flip horizontal and see if the image works well. And let me show you the difference here. I'm going to put it back to the way it was. See how your eye is coming in from the left? And you see the castle, and then you look into the right area here, and there's a lot of emptiness. When I show this to you in the reverse way, your eye comes in from the left. And now the majority of what is really interesting is on the right. And this tree on the far right is a containment. That pushes your eye back in. Then you come around the image. Remember I said, how does your eye roam around the image and how does it keep coming back? Well, you come back up now to the background area, then the clouds over here, this tree on the left brings you back around, and now you're right back into the castle. So this works so much better than the original shot the way it was.
How would
And yes,
John, how would you decide if it might be an opportunity to crop out what's on the left? Because when I look at this image, even the first one, I spent all my time looking at the castle.
yes, I understand. In fact,
Like two messages here.
no, good one. Yes, I would often do a panorama so that I have it all, and then I can decide how I want to crop it or not include it in, and so on. In fact, good question. So let me, on this one,
Or
I'll
scrunch
crop
it in.
this. Let me crop it here for a minute. So I'll show you why I didn't shoot it or didn't present it that way. If I do this, and I would remove that piece of land sticking in there. Let me just take
Why?
that. Now, certainly you see that castle, and the tree on the right is the containment. And then this is a lot of empty space up here that isn't that interesting. When I give you the remaining portion of this, it places that in the setting for me. This is how I see it. And that mountain and that little piece of mountain coming back down in the left, all of that is important to bring you back into the image and back to the castle. So that's why I used this composition.
John, excuse me. What tool did you use to reduce that image? I know you've shown us edit fill and selection, edit fill, etc., but it looked like you used just one tool to get rid of that protruding.
Oh, yeah. Let me do it for you.
Smart.
There's some favorites of mine, depending on how much I need to do something. If it's a small area like this, is this what you're referring to? Yes?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Over in the toolbar is the spot healing brush tool. And if I keep it relatively sharp, 75% hardness, I and I keep it somewhat small and just go around. I don't even have to be careful how I'm doing it because it will then match the pixels to the area around it and replace it. That's
Nice.
one way. The other way is to take this tool and just draw around it, and not be real tight on it because you want it to match the other pixels around it, and go to edit, fill, make it content aware, which is the same thing as what Healing Brush is doing, and then get rid of the dancing ants, and there you have it. Those are the way to do it. When you need to do bigger areas, you really want to clone things, but smaller areas like that, very simple to handle that way. Very nice.
Did a scrunch from the left, is there such a thing that you would use here?
Well, you could do that. Yes. Oh, boy, you guys listen to me too often. That's the problem.
Well, normally you're doing that in the foreground or the sky.
Yes. No, it would work here. Look, I could take a portion of this and scrunch it. And somebody said, where'd you get that term? I said, I made it up. I just made it up. Edit, transform. I'll do free transform. And I'll just move it in. So if I wanted to compress this even more so that there isn't as much on that side, you're absolutely right. You could just scrunch that in, do that, and crop that off so that Now I've brought that back. And now you're getting down to how do I want the image to see? Well, this works very well. So as a, now you have me tempted to do something I'm going to do.
I'm sorry.
No, this is good. One of the things that I often do also is I'm looking at this image is I would take the sponge tool on saturate and maybe up at about 25, 28, 30% and come down to the castle area. I want your eye to really go to that castle. So I will saturate, and you see up here on the option bar, I have vibrance checked on. So when I do that and I use the sponge tool, it will saturate and lighten at the same time. So now I'm putting a little color on the castle and I'm lightening it all at the same time. Now look at the difference of how you look at that castle just with that tool. Pretty neat, right? Okay.
John,
Yes.
John, what's the difference between free transform and transform?
Oh, free transform doesn't give you the ability. Let me do it for you. I'll select all to get the whole image and then edit transform. Free transform just gives me the ability of these various, you see these little white squares. I can use them to do things, but that's all. If I go to transform, I have multiple ways I can transform: scale, rotate, warp. Let me show you warp. If I want to warp, you see all now the little handles here. And if I come up to the top at the options bar, the grid, and I say I want to do a 4x4, now I have areas that I can manage without touching the other part of the image.
Wow.
So I have lots of ways: transform, warp, transform, distort. Free transform, you just do the whole thing.
And
Got
you
it.
could,
Thank you.
like you told us, you can right click and add another dot in there
Yes,
indiscriminately.
you can. That's right. So now you get to really doing things that, oh my goodness, yes, I want to do that. Okay, we're going to get to a black and white here. Here, I'm going to take this into the NIK collection, Silver Efex Pro, and take a look at this image from a black and white standpoint. So it'll take just a second to go through the software and do the conversion.
Morning, John. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Thank
All
you
right.
for your presentation earlier this week.
Oh, thanks.
It was very enjoyable.
Thanks. Here is Silver Efex Pro. On the left side are all these presets. Let me scroll down, show you that there are numerous ways that you can just click on it, and I will do that, and see what the image will look like. On the right-hand side are ways that you can adjust the image. So close those up for a minute so you can see there are multiple ways to adjust the image. One is, if I click on that little arrow, I can adjust the brightness overall, or I can adjust just the brightest highlights, midtones, and shadows within the bright areas, and the dynamic brightness, so I can affect that also. This looks pretty good just coming in and natural. I could do nothing more on this maybe and just open up the brightness or take it down some. And I can affect the contrast either overall or amplifying the whites, the blacks, and so on. Structure is the sharpness of the image. So I actually can sharpen up this image a little bit and make it more three-dimensional that way. Then there are other aspects of tonality protection that you can do. And I'll come through some of these other features over here, but let's stay with this one first, just to understand what do we do with a black and white image? Oh, well, that looks pretty good. And if I scroll down, well, that's just too light. No, my blacks are blocked up. Don't want to use that preset. No, my number 5 is one of my favorites. It gives great detail in all the areas, and I can come over to the right and adjust things the way I want to. I might just bring down the highlights just a little bit more to bring out some of the detail in the cloud areas up there, the midtones a little more. Amplify the blacks, maybe I'll try that a little bit. Yeah. So you just adjust a little and change the structure a little bit. That's looking really good. The other one, if I click on down through these just to see what they look like, that one, these are too bright. But number 14 or 15, look here. 15. 15 does a very good job also for a black and white. And if you look at some of these others, they're interesting, but for this image and for the tonal range of this image, see on this, there's no way I would do that unless I was trying to be artistic some way and maybe merge it with something else. But I'll go back to number 15. Yes, I think that looks really good. So I'll simply click OK and take it back into Photoshop. And the reason I said I do them through Photoshop, you see it's creating a separate layer. The black and white is on a separate layer from the color image. Not that I'm trying to preserve that. I can throw away the color image because I have that as a separate image and then just save this and rename it as a black and white. And I often do that. I don't need to keep this black and this color image as part of this. I would delete it because I'm not going to merge the two in relation to color and then go to File and Save As and save this as the name of it and then just append whatever, black and white, so that I am saving that. And that's what I will work on with all kinds of other aspects about this. I may want to make it a sepia tone, or I may want to do some, in fact, on this one, in order to do that dark light, dark light, dark light, I think that the foreground area here needs to be darkened a bit. So come up to the midtones. I want to give this more three-dimensionality overall. And you notice I have it at exposure of 17, a very soft brush, and I smoothly come across the image. If you do this, you're doubling up when you're trying to do the burning. You don't want to do that. You want to do it smoothly across. So I'll show you what I have about this so that you see the difference of those effects. Here's before I did that. Now watch how your eye moves into the image. I'll run it across the top a little bit more to create some of the darker area in that upper background there and in the background on that side. Now, again, let's look at how it was and how I'm controlling your eye. And the last part I would think to do on this is take the dodge tool on highlights and open up more of the light on the castle and that island, because that's where I want your eye to go instantly. Remember I said in the beginning, where does your eye go and how does it stay within the image? Well, let's look at the difference of just highlighting that from here to here. And let's take it all the way up to where we started this. From there to there as a black and white. I'm going to show you here's a very high key image. Beautiful as it is, really striking. This is not my image. I got it off 1x.com. I've suggested to you a number of times, go to 1x.com and look at the art. I call it art. It really is. Tremendous amount of beautiful images there, just to teach yourself to see other kinds of images. And so I noticed that there were a number of these very high key images. Oh, this may look good as a black and white. So let's take it into
Could you spell that 1X, John?
one
O-N-E-X.
one and the letter X, one letter X.com.
Thank you.
So take it into Silver Efex Pro. And the reason I wanted to do this one was a number of ways that this will look. You saw how that color image was. Well, here's just neutral, pretty much taking that color image and make it black and white. But look at this one. Boy, that's sort of interesting. Stand out. Let's come down to my favorite number 5. Oh, that looks pretty neat. take the contrast a little bit more up this way, bring that out, maybe brighten it up just a little bit, increase the contrast a little bit more. Let's see how that looks. That's looking pretty good. And then I realized you could even play with some other things. Make it really high key and change some of the brightness aspects. Just play with the image and create different looks to the image. So that one really interesting. Ah, yes. And you, oh, before I go there, I get too excited with this stuff. Another presentation. But let me go back to this one. And you asked about frames or around it. One of the neat things about Silver Efex Pro is it has finishing adjustments. If I click on that and open it up, and it has toning and image borders. And if I click on that, watch, I just put the cursor over the various borders that it has. It does it automatically for me. Just puts borders around it. And if I pick one of them, which I will, I can change them. They give me some options for changing the size of them and how they look and so on. So just show, boy, that's neat. Comes down. Ah, that one's sort of neat. Yeah. Oh, let me try that one. Now, when I do that, I'm down to open image borders, and I have the size of it. Can change that. The spread of it. Do I want it cleaner or dirtier? Just how I want the image to look. And you can do that with each of the borders. So it's very easy. This package is really neat to do some things with it.
John, will the border effect be useful on color images also?
Well, here's the thing. When this goes, and I'll show this to you when I take it back in. This will not be on the color image. It's only on this black and white image. So you need something else to do them on your color image. That's very striking. Here's my number 15. Very neat looking aspect of it. I think I'll just increase the overall brightness of this a bit more and the contrast and the structure. And also in this package, you can have various film types, meaning suppose I shot this in a various ways and you can go through all the different ways that it was shot. The really tough part about this package is you have so many things you do, you don't know which one to do. You can add grain, you can add sensitivity to it. You could click on any one of these filters as you brought the color image in, and it would act as though that was the color filter you had at the front of your lens when you shot the color image and how it affects the range of tones within the image. I almost never do anything with those because I know where I want to go with them. And then there are these things called control points, which means if I bring a control point over, if I click on this and bring one in, I can, for a circle around this area here, and that's why I don't like using, I haven't said it yet, I guess. That will, whatever I do under here for brightness within that range of circle that I did, contrast with just within that range of that circle. Well, I don't want it to be doing a circle because it's affecting things around it. If I want to do that, I'll do it in Photoshop and make a specific selection or do the dodge and burn tools and do it specifically where I want to do it. So I hardly ever use that capability called control points in this. And I've sent a message to NIK and DxO now that owns them to say, why not develop truly the ability to have a selection? In any case, let's go back to this one. Here's a very neat.
Before you go, John, how did you get the circle? I have never seen that circle before. How did you get it, love?
Well, you send me $10, I'll show it to you again. No, let me show it.
I'll text it to you.
Let me show you. See where it says selective adjustments? Right here on the right, selective adjustments. I click the little arrow to open it up, and then there's a control point. And if I click it once and then come over and I can put as many as I want. I click it again and adjust them if I hold the shift key, no. Hold the, I'll look it up for you. I don't remember, but you can, and then you can move them around also. And you can, so you can have more of them. Oh yeah, here it is. Here's the other one that I started with. And so I can adjust this one, make the circle smaller. I can adjust how I want that to be. And there are other drop downs here related to fine structure for just that area, but it's doing it within that little circle that you've created. And that this slider makes the size of that circle. I just don't like them very much, but it's over under selective adjustments, and that's where you get them.
Okay, it's that
John.
top circle. Good.
Yes, sir. You have another question?
John, you said something, I have a question. You said something in a prior class about being able to maybe get us a better price on Silver Efex Pro. Have you ever gotten any result from that?
I can't, I'll tell you, I haven't. I have been back and forth with them over this week, and I'm not going to give up on it. They finally sent me a message that said, well, you need to contact such and such and such. So I contacted that person, and they said, oh, well, you need to do, they have me going back and forth, and I don't have it yet, but I'm determined. I'm trying to get something out of them. So here's just to show you a highlight, high key image and taking it in and making it a black and white. Let me take it back into Photoshop, and we have the color image. And so the black and white is coming in. And here's what I meant about selections. If I want to do specifically bring that tree out, rather than that little circle around it, I would use the burn tool, and in this case, put it on shadows, which means it will only darken the darkest pixels. Now, I specifically will run it around that tree to just bring the tree out and not anything else around it. So that I find it a much more effective way to do things in Photoshop. But look how neat that is as a high key image overall. Okay, one more, and then I'm going to continue this next week because there's some others really interesting images to adjust in many ways and using
Wow.
them in Silver Efex Pro. This I got off the web. In fact, I think I got this in 1x.com. So I need to crop in on the image. And I think that this should be flipped horizontally. Now let's take a look. See, I think that reads a lot better because the dark area on the right keeps your eye coming back over into the light area. Let me go back. From here, the dark area, I see her, and this upper part leads me right off the right-hand side. This works a lot better that way. And I will take the image into,
Is the title of that picture Things to Do with TP?
say it again.
Is the title of that picture Things You Can Do with TP?
Oh.
Love that.
John, I wonder if anybody knows where the shot was taken. There's a Jewish star on the wall in back.
Yes, I see that. I see that. I'm just going to increase, I took it in Adobe Camera Raw, increase the clarity just a little bit and add some texture before I'm taking it into Silver Efex Pro, which will just make that a little bit more artistic in a way. Watch the difference of how soft that looks, and I wanted it to have a little more sharpness to it. Now take it into NIK Collection Silver Efex Pro. And you have multiple ways to look at this image that might be that's interesting. It's the high key aspect of this. And just increase the contrast a little bit, but keep it to that high key. Come down to even the lighter ones. Just play, how about this one? or this one. Number 15. Yes, and I would need to adjust. I like it for this image. I like the larger black area and the light areas because it really draws it into it. Now, you'd say, well, John, you said that the dark area should have detail. I said, unless they are used artistically. And in this case, when this comes in as the black and white, I would want to then adjust her so that her skin tones come out well. So I would go up to midtones on the dodge rather than highlights and bring out just more of her without highlighting a lot of her, but enough to bring her in as a major portion where your eye will go related to her. Watch the difference from there to here. And I have all the rest of this working well. I don't care to see all the detail in the black area here. If I wanted to try with some of that, I could come up to levels, open up the shadows just a little bit and see how that works. So a lot of ways that you can adjust your black and white. But look at the striking aspect of this print. From there to there, both are good prints. So I'll leave you this week